Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music. And today we are not in Studio One at the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society, but we've moved to the Midwest, out in Chicago, to talk with a great friend, fabulous musician, great guitar player and singer, Mr. Eric Noden. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming up and taking the time to talk with me about this stuff. I think I've known you pretty much since Joe Filisko and you started playing. You started playing maybe together about 2001, 2?
Something like that, yeah. I think about 13, 14 years ago or something.
Yeah, and I kind of fell in love with Joe Filisko when I walked into his harmonica class at Blues Week, Davis and Elkins College, Elkins, West Virginia, Augusta Heritage Center.
Yeah,
and,
great event.
He was teaching about train songs on the harmonica, and I didn't know what the hell he was doing, but he enchanted me, and he's a great player, and you guys really are sounding great, all the original stuff you're doing, rootsduo.com, right?
That's true. That's the website. But yeah, that's what really got me interested in working with Joe is, he's really got a lot of deep knowledge in all these a lot of obscure harmonica styles, train songs, and fox chases, and I'm interested in a lot of parallel things on the guitar, these early styles that you don't hear a lot of, mainly the acoustic, blues stuff from the 1920s and 1930s. And so even though we write most of the music we play nowadays, it's all influenced deeply by various artists from those eras.
Well, I think it's great what you're doing. I love that style of music, and frankly, as when I started playing harmonica, whatever 18 years ago, 20 years ago, and I loved the acoustic style. I loved Mississippi John Hurt and some of those things, but there weren't a lot of models for harmonica players because there was Sonny Terry and Phil Wiggins who were masters at what they do, and then there were other harmonica players who were great.
Right.
But in that style, it's a little bit unusual. So I'm very happy you're doing what you're doing because it gives me some things to model and work for.
Cool, yeah.
So you've been playing a long time. When did you first start? When did music come into your life? Did your parents? Was there music in your house? Did they play? Family play, or did you just start? Did you grab a resonator right out of the womb?
Right at birth, yeah. No, actually, it was very much a family thing. My dad played guitar, still plays guitar to this day, and so when I was a kid, he would be picking the guitar just for fun. He didn't really do it for living or anything like that, but he certainly enjoys playing acoustic blues and finger-picking blues type of music. And
he did play that style.
Yeah, he did. That's kind of what...
Who were his heroes, or who did he kind of learn that from or hear it from?
He was into kind of a mixture of some old-time stuff like Mississippi John Hurt or Fred McDowell or Reverend Gary Davis, but he also liked a lot of these sort of more modern finger pickers like Leo Kottke.
Oh, right.
And, I'm trying to think, Peter Lang. A lot of guys came out in the sort of the 70s, I guess, 80s, and, did use those techniques to kind of write their own interesting instrumental music, and so yeah, that's really was kind of my exposure to it. Was my dad, and then also his father, my grandfather, who liked to sing a lot. So he would always sing whenever he had like a family reunion or something like that, he had a really strong voice, and he would sing mainly sort of, I guess, what you would call, campfire songs,
Right.
coming around the mountain and
Love it.
all that kind of, that kind of stuff. Let me call you sweetheart and different things like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
so.
Nothing better. So, did you take lessons early on? Were you really, was guitar kind of it from the beginning? Did you take piano lessons? Did you school choirs, that kind of thing? What did you do?
Well, originally I wanted to be a drummer. I said, Dad, hey, I want to play drums, and I guess now looking back on it with a great amount of wisdom, he said, well, think about that. If you really want to play drums in like, another year, I'll get you a drum set. But, if you want to play guitar, I'll get you a guitar right away.
Oh, so, there you go. It's sort of bribery.
Yeah, some bribery. And so, I think my dad had the foresight to, he didn't want to try to teach me because he knew that he had a lot of maybe bad habits and techniques. And so he wanted to take me to somebody who could, kind of show me the ropes, and who had a little more experience than he did. So when I was eight, I got an electric guitar, and I started taking guitar lessons at a local music store called Woodsy's Music in Kent, Ohio. And that's basically how I got started. Was on the electric guitar. So it's just kind of ironic because now I really specialize in acoustic music, and I don't play much electric guitar.
What kind of songs did you start playing when you were young, 8 or 10, 12 years old, whatever? Do you not remember what you were playing?
The thing was, I think I just loved the instrument, and I loved playing it, but I wasn't, unlike a lot of people, I wasn't drawn to the guitar because I wanted to play this song or that song or this type of music.
Stairway to Heaven or something.
Yeah, so I just learned like whatever these teachers would throw at me. They had me reading music out of, whatever, Mel Bay, guitar, and they would show me whatever, rock tunes or whatever they were into, So I just kind of learned a variety of stuff,
And then did you end up getting into bands or groups in high school and perform? Did you kind of jam? What was the...
I did. Well, my first, I think, big performance was I played on this school talent show when I was in like 6th grade. And it was this friend of mine, this kid named Andy, and he had an acoustic guitar, and I had my electric guitar and a little amp. And he was into the Beatles, so he wanted to do that song Obla Di Obla Da. So that was the song we were going to play. So we'd rehearsed it, and it was a big. The whole school was there, so it was probably 500 or 600, big gymnasium, And we were backstage, and then there was a bunch of these girls who were all in these like ballerina outfits or something. They were doing some kind of a dance, and what happened was one of them evidently bumped my guitar over and didn't tell me and put it back up. So I had it tuned, but when we walked on stage, the thing was terribly out of tune. And my buddy Andy, he had his little acoustic guitar, which of course you couldn't hear at all in this giant, gymnasium. So it was kind of a disaster, but that was kind of my first performance. But then in high school, I was in a lot of these, a lot of garage rock bands. We'd play in, somebody's garage until the police came, and, so then we'd shut the garage door and, they'd come back. But, so I did that a lot, played just different kinds of music, rock and top 40 and whatever,
And this was in Ohio still?
This was in Ohio, yeah. I grew up in northeast Ohio in a town called Monroe Falls, but that's pretty close to Kent, Ohio, where I spent a lot of time as well, and not too far from Cleveland, and Akron.
And then what were the next steps for you musically from sort of that era, high school era, to, not that, your life begins and ends with Joe Filisko, but, until
Before
then.
I got to Joe Filisko.
Yeah, I had heard about you through the Mississippi John Hurt foundation or something a
Right.
while. So I'd heard about you actually before
Right.
I met you. But
Yeah, well, the next thing that I got into really heavily was actually classical guitar, because I got to the point where was in a lot of these bands, and I really started to get frustrated and burnt out with sort of depending on other people to kind of further my musical existence. And I had a teacher when I was about 16 this guy named Ken Leonard, who just was like, here, try this. And he just kind of threw these classical, different styles of classical music at me. And it just really intrigued me. And I liked how you could play, the different parts, the bass part with your thumb and the melody with your fingers. And you could kind of be a one-man band. And so that really appealed to me, and I studied that. I went to the University of Akron actually when I was in high school, and I studied classical guitar there for a couple years, and so I was pretty deeply into that, and that taught me a lot about discipline and technique, and then it was kind of from there I sort of rediscovered the music that my dad had always been interested in, the country blues, the finger picking blues, and I found a lot of similarities because you're using your right hand in the same way, playing bass parts and playing melody parts, and it's also a standalone style, so you don't need anybody else to play with you necessarily. And so really that's kind of how I got into acoustic blues, and I just did that. Mainly played that solo for a long time, and the main guy who introduced me to that music was a guy by the name of Andy Cohen.
Oh, right,
and,
right.
Yeah.
From Memphis, is that where he's?
Andy lives in Memphis nowadays, but back then he lived in Kent, Ohio, and that was how he was kind of the local guy who really knew that music, and I sort of hunted him down and said, teach me lessons, and he said no, and then I just kind of kept bugging him until he finally gave in, and so yeah, Andy really, he was a great asset in terms of he just introduced me to here's this style, here's East Coast blues, Libba Cotton, here's Mississippi blues, Tommy Johnson, and they're different in this way and that way, and sort of making these different distinctions between the styles and trying to be true to those different styles, when you play them. So,
man, I think I'd like to go back and do that. Can we go, just travel back in time and I can follow you around for a while? So you were playing kind of solo. You were playing gigs. I mean, were you full-time music or were you?
I did, also, well, around the time when I was 16 too, actually at the same music store that I had started out taking lessons at, Woodsy's Music, I would hang out around there a lot, and I'd play their guitars and I'd play their pianos because I was trying to learn some piano. And yeah, one day they said, Eric, you're always here hanging out. We're going to give you a job, so you don't wear out our guitars.
There you go.
So yeah, so I started teaching there. So I was teaching guitar pretty much full time in Ohio there, starting when I was in my 16, 17, 18, and yeah, that's pretty much, I did that, and then I'd play different gigs, play in cafes and stuff, mainly solo acoustic type of gigs, yeah.
And then not long after, you ran into Joe at some point, or?
Well, then I decided that I had to get out of Ohio, that I wanted to try a bigger city. I felt like I had kind of explored a lot of what I could do in, Northeast Ohio. And while there was a lot of great influences there, and it was a great place to learn from musicians because there's a lot of talented acoustic musicians there, I felt like I needed to go somewhere else to try to sort of, further myself. So I was either going to go to New York or Chicago, and I ended up in Chicago because I got offered a job teaching at the Old Town School of Folk Music. Yeah, so that was 1994 when I moved to Chicago. Just jumped ship and started teaching lessons, there, and that's where I met Joe. So I was always actually interested in the harmonica as well, and play a bit of harmonica myself. And I took took some lessons. I had a friend who was a pretty good harmonica player named Hal Walker in Ohio, who he kind of showed me some of the basics, and another guy named Dave Rice, who predominantly plays old-timey music on the harmonica.
Huh.
He showed me some stuff.
Oh, I'd like
too,
to
yeah.
hear about some of that too.
Yeah.
Maybe after the show you can tell me.
Definitely. So then when I got to Chicago, I think I even took a few lessons from Joe, just because I was interested in harmonica, and I actually even got a few of his, customized harmonicas as well.
I like gold. I like gold.
Just like 4 or 5 of them, and because I was doing a little bit of that in my solo sets, I would play, like I'd sing "And the Sky Is Crying" and a cappella and just play harmonica with it, and then I would do like a train piece too. So that was kind of a little part of my solo show at the time. But it wasn't until maybe, I don't know, probably 5, 6 years later that I sort of got to the point where I was kind of, interested in expanding and doing more collaborations, and so I was trying some different things. And Joe and I did like a couple of gigs together, and it was just really a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed the fact that he was interested in kind of pushing things forward, learning more. I want to try this or that, or, and because it's easy, I think, as a musician, if you learn, 30 or 40 songs, you can kind of decide to just ride on that, and not do anything else. But Joe's not like that, and I'm not like that. We're both kind of like, let's, try this, or, learn this tune or that tune. So
you've been playing together now for, like you said, 13, 14 years, something, and you've have 5 CDs, maybe?
I think that's correct.
Albums, something like that.
Yep.
I'm sure I have them all.
Yep.
And, we were initially doing covers.
We did one CD called Live that was all traditional material, and that was just really basically a collection of the stuff that we played. That was some material I already was playing solo, that then Joe started playing with me, and then some stuff that Joe brought to the table, like I really want to do this, Sonny Terry thing or whatever, so that was kind of the foundation of it, but even when we made that record, I was wanting to do, write our own stuff, so we kind of quickly transitioned to that.
Yeah, you've written the last 4 have been mostly original stuff, at least.
Exclusively.
Yeah, okay. So, and, I love the style that you play and sort of the vibe, and it's fun and bouncy music. What have you kind of learned, together and with Joe, about music and taking that path of spending 10 years, 15 years working together, working on new songs, developing new music. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that definitely with Joe, I think over time we've definitely been a lot of things in terms of we've really learned to trust each other in a lot of different ways. When we started, it wasn't that we distrusted each other, but there just wasn't this we've developed this, I'm trying to think how to describe it, but it's just this kind of intuition that we know that the other person is going to kind of, cover us, and so we're each kind of just trying to help each other out in a lot of ways, and we both trust each other's judgment on a lot of different things, and I think that's something that has developed a lot over time.
And in the course of that time, you've played a lot of gigs now. You play every year now for several years over in Europe, Germany. And,
Oh yeah.
And now you got your down under gig that you do in the other places. So you've played for a lot of people. You've taught a lot of people. I've been in classes with Joe and with you when you teach the harmonica guitar workshop. What do you see in terms of music, the effects it has on people, whether in the audience or students, good things, bad things, anything that kind of just comes to your mind when you think about music and all these folks that you've been playing with and for all these years.
Right. Well, I think the thing that, appealed to me personally about, sort of blues and roots music is I just think it allows you for a very rich level of sort of personal expression and to kind of put yourself into it and express yourself. And I think as a performer, that's a lot of the joy and the fun of it, is that you're able to sort of express emotions, through the music, and I think it's a wide variety of music, even though people think of blues as like sad, down music. A lot of times It's got really a full scope of everything from ridiculously silly to, dark and somber or whatever. It's got all these different, shades in it. And, I think for the audience, too, they get to experience that kind of, with you and through you. So it's I think it can be a really deep thing, a really moving thing, But I think they sense the honesty. What Joe and I do is definitely, it's got technique to it and it's got a few, cheap tricks here and there, but essentially it's like the honesty in the music. I think people can really sense if that's there, if it's sincere or if it's not, and I think that's kind of our thing, or what makes us special is that we have that in our music.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, and it does come across. So, quick little story. A woman singer who was going to the barbershop, Archie Edwards Blues Heritage Foundation. You may know her, Nina Casey.
I don't think so.
She'd been to Blues Week, but she was sort of in an in-between age of playing music. She wanted to sing. She'd been out of it for a while. And she went to some camp. I think it was like a Christian music camp, but they had a bunch of different tents with different styles of music. And she walked into one and heard this guy playing a train song on the harmonica, and it just blew her away. She said, I don't know what this is, but I got to start doing this music. And then she ran into Phil Wiggins, and he did the song Roberta that he does, and she said, okay, that's it. I got to figure out about it. And so that's one person who was kind of touched by this style of music. Of course, there's a million styles of music, and you can get touched by a lot of different. But that's a pretty powerful thing to have happen. Her life kind of changed. She put a whole new effort into singing blues, acoustic blues. She does jazz standards and other things now too. But
right.
People in the audience can really be affected by what you're doing.
That's true. And I think that's one of the magical things about, roots music or folk music is it's this idea that you don't have to go to music school for 20 years to be able to play this stuff. And pretty much anyone is welcome to participate and express themselves, and that's a really cool thing. That's something too that they put across really well, I think, at the Old Town School of Folk Music, where both, Joe and I have taught, is like, just giving people a chance to get into it, pick up a guitar, learn 2 or 3 chords, and you can, sing 100 songs, within a couple of years.
Yeah, it's really special to be able to participate. I know I've been bitten by that bug. So you've taught a lot of people guitar and whatever, and you see that kind of reaction quite often. It sort of gives them a new opening in their life, or.
I think so. But I think people enjoy it. I think for most of the students I've had, it's more of a hobby, or something that they do to just relax and get away from a lot of the other stuff in their life that they may want to get a break from, here and there. So it's just I guess it's different things to different people, but I've also done a lot of blues in the schools programs. So I worked a lot with kids and stuff, and I've enjoyed that a lot too, because a lot of times I work with kids who've never don't have any musical experience, and just get them playing percussion instruments, singing, maybe playing harmonica, and a lot of times doing a performance of some sort. And I think that can be very exciting, can be very encouraging to someone just to get an opportunity to do something like that.
Help them get out of their comfort zone a little bit. I mean, find themselves sometimes. Yeah, I think it's pretty powerful. So you've done these a lot of gigs now in Europe and in Australia. Differences in the way that people appreciate this kind of music in there versus the U.S. Any thoughts about the audiences here versus there, or how you're received in those kind of places?
Pretty good receptions in all those places in different ways. I mean, I think there's sometimes there's some cultural differences. Like I think the European audiences tend to look at performances more as a concert, whereas it might be more of like a show or something.
Where they listen more?
Yeah, more of a concert, like similar to a classical music performance or something like that, and so it varies. And I think too, there's also, if you travel really far, that's more impressive than, here's Eric, he lives down the street, he's playing at our local bar. Big deal. But if you're like in Australia, they're like, wow, here's this guy from Chicago. So there's a certain thing there too, exoticness, I guess you could say.
But they both sets of audiences really like the blues. They like some of the roots type music that you play more so than in the States, or just different gradations of it, or
it just depends. I mean, I think you could be playing for the right or the wrong audience in any place, So a lot of the trick is finding the right venue and situation for the type of music that you play. Our music tends to be more acoustic, more mellow, so it doesn't work a lot of times in really rowdy, situations anywhere. But I do find the European audiences a lot of times are even more educated about the history of blues than American audiences. So they, I mean, I remember one time I was playing in a hotel here in Chicago, this place called the Hotel Allegro that I used to play at like once a week for a while. And I'd play instrumental music, and I was just playing this slide thing, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And this guy comes up to me and he says, hey, that was a little bit of Mississippi Fred McDowell mixed with Bucka White and a little bit of Robert Johnson or something. And he was a European guy, but that kind of thing would rarely happen from,
right.
an American audience member. So they have a thing of, probably because it's farther away, sometimes people make more of an effort to try to learn about it, I think, because it's, harder to experience or whatever, because it's not a local thing.
Yeah. So you are doing, shall I say, planetary gigs. And, part of what we're trying to do is have the conversation about what music can do, the power of music, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace, making a better world a little bit.
Right.
How do you see that fitting into what you're doing, or do you feel that there's a lot more room for musicians from different places to travel around and export their style? I mean, have you thought much about the bigger picture, the deeper picture of what you're doing? You're spreading love, really, I think.
Yeah. I think the nature of it is, that, and I mean, I think Joe and I, we do make a point to try to create music and write music that has messages in it that we feel good about, I mean, which there is a lot of stuff, especially in the blues. It might not be real positive, messages. So we really try to create stuff that we feel good about putting out there and connecting with people. I mean, our music particularly is not extremely political. It's got a little bit of it in there here and there, but that's not really our our thing in terms of that kind of, action through music or something. But I think, kind of like you said, it's the spiritual nature of music is just that it lifts people up, makes them feel good. I think if you are feeling, joy and happiness in your music as a performer, I think that, transmits to the audience, basically.
Yeah. So if you had a message to, I don't know, people around the world, fans, other guitar players, harmonica players, anything that you might suggest? I mean, like even, people like me, I'm working on the guitar, man, I can't.
Don't play so many notes.
That's a good one. That's a good one, Eric. Don't play so many notes is a good one. The space is good, right?
Ones, yeah. Put a lot of play less notes with more feeling, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's I don't consider myself a real religious person or anything, but to me, in a lot of ways, and actually one time I had a conversation with Joe about this. I kind of feel like music is kind of like my spiritual thing, and playing music to me connects to that, and I mean, I've experienced some pretty interesting things in that. Like I used to play with a gospel group in Ohio, and it was really interesting to see the sort of, the Baptist African American gospel style and how they use the music to sort of transcend, go into these kind of almost trance-like states and stuff like that. And so I think you can take it in a lot of different directions, and for me personally, I think music is very spiritual.
Yeah, I've thought before as I was trying to learn, Little Walter's Blue Midnight for 6 months or however long it took me. It's like trying to learn a song can give your life meaning, and in some ways, just trying to learn a lot of songs and play more. Right. Can give your life meaning too.
Sure.
So I really appreciate your taking the time. I don't know if you got anything else any other messages for the world out there, or hopefully we'll get Joe lined up to do a conversation sometime soon. I do appreciate you coming into the city, and really appreciate it, and hope to hear some more good music with you and play some more with you too.
Cool, man. Well, it was great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. Eric Noden, everybody. Thank you. You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.